All right, let's talk about a piece of technology that basically went from a science lab to a household name overnight: mRNA vaccines. I mean, we've all heard the term, but how do they actually work? Well, let's dive in and find out. And just to give you an idea of how big a deal this is, the foundational science behind it all just won the highest honor you can get, the 2023 Nobel Prize in Medicine. It went to Katalin Karikó and Drew Weissman for the discoveries that made this whole thing possible. That's huge. So, first things first, let's get down to the basics. What in the world is an mRNA vaccine? Okay, so think of it like this. Most vaccines inject a dead or weakened virus to train your body, but an mRNA vaccine is totally different. It's more like a recipe or a biological blueprint. It gives your own cells the instructions to build a harmless little piece of a virus, just enough to catch your immune system's attention. Now, there's a little problem. The mRNA blueprint is super fragile. If you just injected it, your body would tear it apart in seconds. This is where the real genius move comes in. Scientists figured out how to wrap it in this tiny protective bubble of fat called a lipid nanoparticle. You can think of it like a microscopic delivery drone, protecting its precious cargo and making sure it gets right inside your cells. Honestly, cracking this delivery problem is what really unlocked the door for these vaccines. All right, the package has been delivered. The blueprint is inside the cell. So what happens next? Let's walk through step by step how this thing actually trains your immune system. It basically boils down to a 4-step process. First, you've got delivery. Then your cell reads the blueprint and starts building a specific protein. And finally, that protein becomes the perfect training dummy for your immune system, getting it prepped and ready for a real fight. So, once that little fatty bubble merges with one of your cells, it releases the mRNA instructions. And here's the clever part. The vaccine doesn't bring its own tools. It uses your body's own protein-making factories, these things called ribosomes. They just grab the mRNA and start reading the instructions, like it was any other message from your own body. And what are those instructions for? Well, they tell the cell to start churning out a specific protein. For the COVID-19 vaccines, it was that famous spike protein. Now, I have to stress this. This spike protein, all by itself, is totally harmless. It can't infect you or make you sick. It's just one piece of the puzzle. Okay, this is the final step. Your cell now takes these spike proteins it just made and presents them on its surface. It's basically waving a big red flag that says, "Hey, look at this weird new thing." Your immune system's security guards spot it, recognize it as an intruder, and go into full training mode. They build up an army of antibodies and special memory T cells, creating a powerful, long-lasting memory of what the enemy looks like. And you know, while it felt like this technology just appeared out of thin air in 2020, the truth is, this overnight success was actually built on decades of really hard work by scientists. I mean, the journey started way back in 1990, with the first proof that you could even get this to work in mice. Then, a huge breakthrough in 2005 figured out how to tweak the mRNA so it wouldn't trigger a massive overreaction from the body. That paved the way for the very first human trial in 2013 for a rabies vaccine, which set the stage for the incredible sprint we saw in 2020. Now, of course, like any revolutionary technology, mRNA vaccines have their own unique set of pros and cons. So, let's get the full picture. The advantages are just incredible. The biggest one? Speed. Once you have a virus's genetic code, you can literally design a vaccine on a computer in a few days. That's a total game changer. But on the other side, there were challenges. Some of the first vaccines needed to be stored at crazy cold temperatures, which was a huge logistical nightmare. And then there's reactivity. That's the scientific term for feeling kind of crummy for a day or two with a fever or fatigue. It's actually a sign your immune system is revving up, but it definitely got people's attention. And that brings us to a really big question. One that caused a lot of concern for people. Can these vaccines get into our cells and somehow change our DNA? Let's be really clear on this one. The answer is a hard no. It is biologically impossible. And here's why. First, your DNA is locked away in a secure vault inside your cell, called the nucleus. The mRNA never, ever goes in there. Second, our bodies just don't have the right tools to turn RNA back into DNA. It's a one-way street. And finally, remember how fragile that mRNA blueprint is? Well, after it delivers its message, your body shreds and recycles it within a couple of days. Its job is done, and it's gone.
So, now that this tech has been proven on a global scale, you gotta ask, where do we go from here? Well, the potential is just staggering.
Get this. The next generation is something called self-amplifying mRNA, or saRNA. It's like a blueprint that also comes with instructions for a photocopier. Once it's inside your cell, it starts making copies of itself, which means you can get a really powerful immune response from a much, much smaller dose. It's pretty incredible.
And scientists are now aiming this technology at some of the toughest diseases out there. We're talking about personalized cancer vaccines that could teach your immune system to hunt down your own specific tumor. We're talking about better vaccines for the flu, for Zika, and maybe, just maybe, a vaccine for malaria. This has opened up a whole new toolbox for medicine. Which really leaves us with this one mind-blowing thought. We now have the ability to literally write the code for immunity and deliver it to our bodies. So the question isn't, can we do it anymore? The question is, what should we go after next?